Thank you, everybody, for coming. We are going to get started. A few quick housekeeping announcements. First, captions will be provided on screen behind our panelists up here, and ASL interpretation is provided. A certified deaf interpreter will be in front at all times, and we will be pausing periodically to swap interpreters. In addition, a hearing interpreter is present if you wish to make your comment using ASL. Bathrooms are out in the hall to the left and the right. There are gender-inclusive bathrooms on either side, and there is water, coffee, and tea at the back table. Per the public health guidance from the City of Boston's Public Health Commission, masks are strongly encouraged when in indoor events. We have clear face masks available if you would like one, as well as hand sanitizer. Now, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment and you are present in the room, please sign up at the table in the back or out the door. If you would like us to read your question, you can indicate that on the sheet and we will do so. If you are on Zoom, please put your question in the comment section of the chat. And if you wish to use ASL to ask a question on Zoom, please indicate that in the chat. We will be rotating through pre-submitted questions, in-person questions, and Zoom questions throughout the day. We ask that you ask one question at a time and that you try to keep your remarks to about 2 minutes. That way we can address as many issues as possible. And if you are not able to ask your question live today, please know that we will address you after the fact. Finally, this is being recorded and live streamed, and there will be a broadcast later on City TV and the city's YouTube channel. And with that, I would like to pass it off to Commissioner Kristen McCosh.
Thank you very much, Colleen. I'd like to welcome everybody to our annual Disability Community Forum. I'm so glad to see that we have such a great turnout for this live event. It's our first live indoor event since the pandemic began over 2 long years ago. So I'm really glad that you all were able to come out. I see all of you wearing masks. We really appreciate that. As Colleen said, there's hand sanitizer available. We have masks if you'd like to take some home. We have clear masks that help with access. So please, we want everybody to stay safe. We were luckily able to add a Zoom component to the forum just yesterday, thanks to some technical help from Suffolk University and our talented staff in City Hall. So we're happy to be able to show the Zoom event live and take questions from people on Zoom. So it's really an equal meeting. We didn't want to have 2 separate meetings. We want to make sure everybody's included in this meeting. So we know that's an ongoing challenge, and we're working closely with the city to try to keep virtual meetings going in as many areas as possible. So I'd like to start off by just acknowledging my staff for all their hard work. I always brag that my biggest talent is hiring talented people because they make me look good. They do so much good work. So the woman who introduced us is Colleen Flanagan. She's our outreach and engagement specialist. Also in the room is Kylie Potter, who is our parking program manager. And handling registration and check-in is Chris Morowski, who is our staff support specialist. At home today with COVID are 2 of my other staff, Andrea Patton, my chief of staff, and Sarah Leung. So they were unable to make it because rates are rising currently, but we are in constant contact with the Boston Public Health Commission, who assures us that hospital rates are stable. So we really do want to make an effort to get back out as long as we stay safe. So again, this is one of our favorite events because we actually get to hear from you. We don't want to do a lot of talking. We really want to do a lot of listening. And we'll get to your questions in just a moment. But first, I would like to introduce some members of my advisory board. As many of you may know, we have an advisory board made up of 13 community residents who are from different neighborhoods. They have different backgrounds, different disabilities, and they have public meetings once a month to raise issues to us that they want us to work on, and also to bring the work that we're doing back out to the community. So I'm going to ask them to give a brief bio, name, where they're from, and what they like to work on, and what they like about being on the commission. So I'll start to my right.
Hi, my name is Olivia Richard. I'm the immediate past chair of the Disability Commission Advisory Board. And I come from Brighton. And I like to work on housing as well as transportation. And there's lots of things that I love about what I do here. The biggest one is being able to take the perspective of lived experience and put it towards improving access for all Bostonians.
Great, and I'm Jerry Boyd. I'm also an advisory board member. Been on the board for about 8 years now, 7 or 8 years. I'm from West Roxbury, and what I like about being on the board is hearing directly from, my neighbors with disabilities and without disabilities who have issues that they would like us to bring forth to the powers that be at City Hall, and that's one reason why I like to participate in this forum as well. And it gives us a chance to hear directly from the constituents in the city and what your needs are and how we can help. So thanks for being here today.
Hi, my name's Paul Karen. I serve on the Disability Commission Advisory Board Executive Committee as a secretary now. Work as a supervisor at the Boston Planning and Development Agency, and serve as an advocate for mental illness, and also housing is very important to me. Just got appointed as a delegate to the Ward 5 committee, state committee for Democrats also. And my line's always open if anyone ever needs anything, and look forward to having a guest speaker speak at one of our upcoming meetings on mental disabilities and COVID. So if you guys will keep your ears open for that. I want to thank Commissioner McCosh and everyone. And like I said, my line's always open. Thank you.
Great. Is that everybody? I can't see to the end of the table. Is that all our board members?
That's everybody that's at the table, but there are members of the board on Zoom, including Ducia and Juan Carlos.
Okay, so Colleen said a few of our board members are joining us on Zoom. We also have a few other board members who couldn't make it today, but we really want to thank them for all their service and dedication to improving accessibility and inclusion in the city of Boston. And just so everybody knows, we currently have 2 open board seats if you'd like to spread the word. The only requirements are that you live in Boston and that you are involved in the disability community. Also attending today are some of my colleagues from City Hall. So I would like to have them just introduce themselves and say what department they're from, just a real brief, sentence or two about what they work on. And our staff person, Kylie, is going to walk around with the mic. So if you could just raise your hand, and we can start in the back here, Kylie, with Chiron.
Thank you for having me. My name is Chiron Owens. I work for the Office of Emergency Management, and essentially we manage and coordinate all of the emergency plans on behalf of the city. And I also send out the emergency alerts. So you guys have probably heard of Alert Boston. If you haven't, please sign up. I'll be here until the close of the event to get you signed up for emergency alerts. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dana Smith. I work with the Office of Housing Stability. We have plenty of different housing services and support to provide stability to any resident of Boston, especially our rental relief fund. Please feel free to reach out. I will be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rendeo. I am the outreach coordinator for the Parks Department. I work with our friends groups, basically, and I am the liaison for the Parks Department.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luigi Lalane, and I work for the Boston Mayor's Office for Immigrant Advancement, and we are here to help immigrants integrate in Boston through connecting them with community partners and also figuring out how to best identify barriers that are preventing them from doing so and connecting them with resources. I will be here until the next maybe 30 minutes, and so feel free to connect with me via email. That is luigi.lalane@boston.gov. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and I am the Interim Director for Language and Communications Access here in the City of Boston. And we work to ensure that the city is accessible for persons with disability, as well as persons who speak a language other than English. Me and my team will be here until the end of the event, so I'm happy to connect with all of you, and our door is always open.
Everyone, my name is. I'm also a member of the Communications Access Office, and as Jennifer just said, we will be event. Here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erica Garcia. I'm here with the Department of Language and Communications Access, and I am the research analyst.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hayan, she, her pronouns. I'm the Deputy Director with the Office of Food Justice. So the mission of the office is to build a more sustainable, resilient, and just food system. If folks need help with food access issues, please contact us at food@boston.gov. Especially as COVID picks up, we have those resources and want to make sure that we're able to connect people that way. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samia Khalid. I'm a policy fellow at the Economic Mobility Lab, the Mayor's Office, under the Equity and Inclusion Cabinet, and I work very closely with the Mayor's Office of Women's Advancement. I will be here till the end of the event, so feel free to come to me and have a conversation with me. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa. As part of the Age Friendly Initiative under the Age Strong Commission, we work on systemic issues related to housing, transportation, the built environment, social inclusion, and a few other things for older adults.
Good afternoon. My name is Corinne White. In partnership with Melissa, I work for the Age Strong Commission. I lead Dementia Friendly Boston, so I have initiatives across the city focusing on dementia and other cognitive disability.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maria Angeli Solis Cervera, and I'm the Chief of Inclusion, along with many of my staff and colleagues here. We're really just thinking about how do we transform City Hall to be a place that is more equitable and inclusive to all our residents. Thank you for being.
Just a few more, and then we'll get right to your questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Pierre, and I serve as the Chief of Communications for the City of Boston. And I'm really just here to learn and get some next steps on how we can implement more accessibility in all of our communications work. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to come and talk to me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brianna Mellor, the Chief of Community Engagement, known for having the Office of Neighborhood Services, the liaisons in every single neighborhood. So I heard West Roxbury here, Brighton. We have liaisons for every single neighborhood in the city, and 311. And I'm really excited to dig into how we can make City Hall more accessible and taking City Hall out of City Hall. So thank you for having me today.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And we did have another board member join us. If you'd like to give a brief intro and just talk about what neighborhood you're from and what you like about serving on the board.
Yes, hi. My name is Zaria Amir Hosseini, and I live in South Boston. And I've been a part of the board for a very long time. I'm very happy to be here.
Great. Thank you, Zari. So with that, I will say we'll try to leave time at the end so people can... Oh, there's more city people? Oh, BTD. Okay. Sorry, I didn't see you, Charlotte. Charlotte is here from BTD. Oh, and Amy Cording. Okay. As you can see, we work very closely with multiple departments in City Hall, everything from BTD, Boston Transportation Department, to comms and community engagement. All the departments we can work with to improve systemic accessibility. So we'll leave some time at the end so people can mingle and ask staff questions if they have any. one-on-one. And we're also expecting Mayor Wu to be here around 3 o'clock. So with that, we will jump right in. I did bring a copy of our annual report, which just gives some bullet points about what we've done over the last year. And I just want to make sure everybody signed in today so that we can email you the report if you don't get to take a hard copy. Okay, so Colleen, I'm going to throw it to you now for questions.
All right. The first pre-submitted question is, does the city have an ordinance regarding using brick for sidewalks? Does the commission have a stance on brick and cobblestone sidewalks?
Okay, that's a great question to kick off because a big part of our job is working on sidewalks. We have 2 architectural access specialists on the staff, and one of them sits on the Public Improvement Commission, which is a board made up of 5 different commissioners who oversee all work that's done on public rights-of-way. And we do have a city sidewalk policy, which calls for sidewalks to be constructed in concrete and reconstructed in concrete unless they're existing brick. And if they are brick, they can be replaced with brick, but they must use wire-cut brick, not the old rough-hewn, jagged and uneven brick. So that is the city sidewalk policy. We also go by the Complete Streets model, which is a national framework of how to design sidewalks and streets for pedestrian use as well as vehicular use. The city's been using that model for several years now, and it's really, it's a great design. We do have a link to it if you'd like more information on it, and I'm going to ask Andrea to put that in the chat in Zoom. And again, like I said, if you signed in, we can email you the link. But it gives very explicit direction and guidance on how to set up sidewalks so they're accessible. And the only new sidewalks we build in brick are the ones that have a brick strip along the edge. We always keep a pedestrian zone with a minimum of 5 feet clear in concrete. And then the second half of the question is, does the commission have a stance on brick? And that would be my advisory board. And I would say about 7 years ago, the board took a vote to unanimously approve the city continuing to construct sidewalks in concrete. So we do have that on record. That's one of the biggest things that the board does is they take positions either of support or concern. And for this case, they did take, they had an issue of concern. So they took a vote, and their official stance is to support concrete in public rights-of-way.
Just a moment. Okay, the next pre-submitted question is from a resident in Chinatown who asked, what is the city doing to make sidewalks more accessible, particularly for people with disabilities, or who use wheelchairs? I'm sorry.
Okay, so sidewalk access for wheelchairs. One thing that the city just started doing, we've always done a lot of work on sidewalks and curb ramps, but one thing that we really just started real intentional work on is curb ramps. We entered into an agreement with a group of disability advocates to improve our work on curb ramps. That means that we have made a commitment to install 1,600 new curb ramps in the city every year, in addition, or including the ones that we usually do. So Public Works does this all year round during construction season from April through November. And now we've made an additional commitment of 1,600 ramps. They'll all be ADA compliant. They have yellow tactile warnings. And this was a really good agreement with the advocates because it shows the city's commitment. We always want to do the right thing, but now we're held to the letter of the law that we will be doing the right thing. So again, all my colleagues in City Hall always reach out to us and my architectural access staff to ensure that they're doing the right thing, that they're meeting the needs of the community. So I think the fact that they stay in close contact with us is a really helpful way to get the sidewalks improved and make sure they are accessible for all pedestrians, including people who use wheelchairs.
Another pre-submitted question is, because we received several comments about bike lanes and the increasing numbers of them being installed. One comment was a concern about their impact on parking and the loss of such parking. Another was about tension points with disabled pedestrians, such as wheelchair users getting stuck in parking protected bike lanes when they get out of their car, and need to travel in the bike lane to reach a curb cut for the sidewalk.
Okay, so bike lanes, that is definitely a big issue in the disability community. And it's a growing concern because we know the city is installing more and more bike lanes. So sometimes different groups have competing interests, and we know that a lot of times bicycles and wheelchairs have similar interests because they want smooth pavement and they want protection to travel freely across the city. So with the addition of bike lanes, I will say that my staff and I work very closely with BTD and with Public Works on the design of the bike lanes and also the construction. So the city is really committed to making Boston more transit-oriented, more transit-friendly, not just focusing on cars and trucks and cabs and now Ubers. So some of the conflict points that we see between people with disabilities and bike lanes have to do, as this question pointed out, with intersections where they cross, also parking. Some parking is being removed. But I will say that parking is being removed all over the city for different reasons. We now have outdoor dining, as I'm sure a lot of you know, so that's taken up some spaces. So really, it's not unique to accessible parking being removed. It's just parking in general is being removed. But what my office focuses on is making sure that if an accessible space is removed, it's not just taken down, that it's relocated. So you will notice that around the city. For an example, in the North End, some accessible spaces were taken down for outdoor dining, but we moved them close by around the corner or onto another street so that we don't lose the actual number of publicly available accessible parking spots. So that's one thing that we're doing to help with bike lanes. Also moving those accessible spots to a different location. And I will say that BTD is very collaborative with us on that. They always let us know if bike lanes are impacting any parking spaces, and they work with us closely to make sure that we relocate those. Another issue is, as was mentioned in the question, is that people with disabilities sometimes get stuck in a bike lane and unable to get out of a bike lane or don't know that a new bike lane was installed. So one thing my office is doing currently is we received a grant from the Boston Foundation. So we're about to embark on a really exciting outreach campaign to talk about, two-pronged, to reach out to the members of the disability community who may not know about the different uses of space in the city now. We call it shared space. Some walkways that are being installed are multimodal shared pathways, so bikes and pedestrians may mix together legally. So some people might think that's not legal, but it is. But we're trying to be really safe about those things. And then also we want to reach out to the biking community and also people with small electric scooters and the skateboards that we see now, just to let them know that people with disabilities are on the sidewalks, that they might not be able to hear you if you ring your bell, or they might not see you if you're coming, and also they might just not be able to jump out of the way quickly if you're coming behind them. So we're really excited. We're going to start the campaign soon and hope to launch it in the next few months. Alrighty, we'll take one more question that was pre-submitted and then we'll get to the audience.
So we received several comments about the T, including about the need to make the Green Line more accessible, raising concerns over delays and missed pickups from the ride, and concerns about the process for receiving and renewing tap cards.
Okay. Is anybody from the MBTA here? I know a few people were supposed to come. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Would you like to answer that question? Could you come up to the mic? Thank you. And just introduce yourself if you don't mind.
My name is Michelle Styler. I am the chief of paratransit at the ride. I'm relatively new to Boston, but I do have extensive experience in paratransit services, and I came to you from New Jersey. With respect to the concerns about delays And was it missed trips as well?
Yep, delays and missed trips.
We are recovering, and some of the riders here may be familiar with a software rollback to Adept, and that was on our webpage. We are seeing improvements in on-time performance and reduced missed trips. I can leave my contact information here as well. I actually wasn't expecting to speak as a newcomer to this group, but we are closely tracking and monitoring service. We're seeing improvements in our call hold times as well. And one of the things that we're addressing that is impacting on-time performance right now is a nationwide shortage of drivers. And that's being encountered throughout the nation and is having a significant impact on paratransit. I'm sorry. And we are heavily focused on staffing up there as well. And I think that addresses the issue, but I will leave my contact information here. Thank you.
Great. If you could leave that on the table out in the hall, that would be wonderful. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Michelle. If most of you may know that we work very closely with the MBTA, with the Office of System-Wide Accessibility, and also with the RIDE. Michelle's predecessor, Carol, was there for 20 years. We work very closely with her. So we're looking forward to working with Michelle as well.
So Carol recently retired.
Yes.
May 1st was her first day of retirement.
Yep.
We will be reaching out to you. We do have a new Deputy Director of Communications, and I'm eager to make connections with the community here. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're glad your first event was with us. And then the other question was about the tap cards, the machine. Some of you may know the machine has been broken for a while. Working with the T, we had learned that the machine, I think it was made outside of the country. There are some supply chain issues in getting the parts to fix it. So it is still broken and maybe for some time to come. But if anyone doesn't know, you can request to get your card in the mail. And if you want more information about that, just see me after the forum and we can give you more details about that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the live portion of the forum. If anybody has signed up to ask a question, Colleen is going to read their name.
Yep, and if you haven't signed up and want to, please let us know. First, Dawn Summerfield, you are up.
Oh, I don't think the mic's on.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Hold it up really close.
We
Dawn.
live in unprecedented times, but access should always prevail. And as John Winsky once said in an emergency planning conference, and he was joking, I'll put my head between my legs and kiss my ass goodbye. But that's not what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say is, and Commissioner Kristen, I think you know what I'm going to say, that there's someone else, and I won't mention his name, did a lot of work on trying to make the outdoor dining in the North End accessible, but he did not prevail. There's now, I think, a plan in offering access to these dining tables outside, but there's no requirement. I and many other advocates have advocated for access for this outdoor dining. Why is this not required by state and federal law and the city of Boston?
Thanks, Dawn. And just in case anybody had difficulty hearing the question was about outdoor dining. In these unprecedented times, we know things shifted quickly, and one of the biggest programs that the city implemented was outdoor dining. So Dawn is concerned that there are no requirements for accessibility, so I just want to talk briefly about our work on outdoor dining. So when the pandemic first hit, the city moved swiftly to help businesses stay afloat and also help people be able to get out safely. So what they did was they implemented a pilot outdoor dining program downtown and in different neighborhoods. So the first year, it was somewhat chaotic. It wasn't perfect, and we didn't do the best job that we could have on accessibility. But we definitely considered it and worked on it. My office and I submitted a variance application to the Architectural Access Board to request permission for restaurants to use portable ramps. We then purchased and distributed 175 portable ramps to restaurants in the city. We prioritized women and minority-owned businesses in underserved neighborhoods. So these ramps were meant to provide access from the sidewalk down to the street level. And we also provided an accessibility toolkit, which gave restaurants instructions on how to set up the ramp, information on how to work with customers with disabilities, and it included a sign that was laminated to post, restaurants to post outside so that people would know they could ask for the ramp. So that was one point, Dawn. The ramp wasn't required to be set up the whole time, but it was required to be present if somebody asked for it. So I'm sure it's a common misunderstanding that there is no access in the restaurants, but there really is. We've worked very hard the year after and this year. We've done trainings with restaurants to talk about the accessibility requirements because they are required. They're required to have a ramp to get down to the street. They're required to have an accessible table, and they're required to have a path of travel of at least 3 feet in between tables. So if you don't see that, please call our office, or you can email disability@boston.gov, and we will definitely work with the restaurants. We work very closely with all the restaurants and with other city departments, including licensing and the fire department, public works, and a lot of others to ensure that dining is accessible. And it's disappointing to hear that you had that experience, but we are happy to continue working on it and to spread the word that accessibility is required. Mayor Wu has also asked us to work on creating a permanent outdoor dining program to kick off next year. So we're in the process of planning that, and that will have more stringent accessibility requirements, as we hope no more variances. So stay tuned for more information on that. Colleen?
Okay, next on the list is Kadreen Turner.
Good afternoon. My name is Sister Kadrian, and I'm a community outreach worker. Is it on?
Just might want to bring it up closer to your mouth.
I'm a community outreach worker, and I'm here to question what the committee is doing to protect disabled, what the city is doing to protect disabled workers from workplace mobbing. I'm a survivor of workplace mobbing at Northeastern University. My case is at the First Circuit Court of Appeals against 36 individuals. And I had to walk away from my case because I could not get an attorney. Most of the attorneys cited a conflict of interest with Northeastern. So I'd like to know what you're doing to protect workers from workplace mobbing. I almost committed suicide, and we need protection in the workplace. I've been to the city, I've been to the state, I've been to the presidents, I've been to all of our elected officials. And my concern is that if we don't do something about it, that someone's going to show up in the workplace and take matters into their own hand, and innocent people will lose their lives. So I'd like to know what's being done to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out, sister, and sharing that experience. I'm really sorry that you experienced that, and we work really hard to get people with disabilities the support they need. As far as our office's role in that, we primarily work on information and referral to get people to the right sources. We know we work closely with the Disability Law Center and Greater Boston Legal Services. I don't know if that's something that you've tried personally. You have, okay. Okay. So other than those two legal agencies, we also have the Mass Commission Against Discrimination.
I filed a total of 16 grievances,
Okay.
starting at Northeastern. Then I went to MCAD, EEOC, District Court. I went to the First Circuit Court of Appeals. I was denied an attorney at both District Court and the First Circuit Court of Appeals. And I simply had to walk away, unfortunately. And this is a pervasive issue.
So
I'm very concerned about people losing their lives. There's a lawsuit in Seattle right now from a young man, Evan Safety, who was provoked to commit suicide. 40-year-old young man. And there's a lawsuit from his parents.
I know.
Seeking justice.
I know. Just speaking about self-harm, coming out of COVID has put so much pressure on people. We know that there are a lot of mental health needs. There are needs with employers to, do more training to understand people with disabilities and reasonable accommodations that may be needed for their work. That would also be something I'd recommend to talk to human resources at Northeastern.
I knocked at all doors.
Okay.
Starting at Northeastern, all doors.
Sister, could I ask you to speak with me after the forum, and we can talk about a little more details?
But this is an issue that was prevalent before COVID. I've been seeking justice for 20 years.
Okay.
20 years.
Well, thank you for coming out today. Have you come to any of our events before?
No, this is my first one because this is the first time that I truly reached a point where I can admit to being disabled as a result of workplace law.
Okay. Well, we're really glad that you found us, and a lot of other cabinet chiefs and department heads are here from the city, so we'll connect with you offline. Thank you, sister. Colleen?
Okay, we have a question from the Zoom room, and the question is, I'm sometimes asked on my street where to report ramps blocked. It is hard to find the information to easily send to people. Is there a place online to direct people to find the right information?
Okay, so the question was, what was it when curb ramps are blocked?
Is there a place online to direct people to find the right information?
About curb ramps?
To report a curb ramp blocked.
So the question is, how do we report curb ramps that are blocked or broken for that, in that case? So as part of the agreement, we reached with the disability advocates. We've also implemented a form that is on our website. It's on the main page of boston.gov, and it's also on our website, our web page on the website at boston.gov/disability. You could also call 311. But the curb ramp form is, it's a place where you can report broken, blocked, or intersections that need a curb ramp that don't have one. And you can upload pictures, and you will get a response from the city that we will investigate it within 30 days, and then we will take action on it within a year. Sometimes we can do it very quickly. It might be what we call a make-safe repair. We can go out and put some asphalt on it. Sometimes it needs to be reconstructed. Like if there is no curb ramp on a corner, that would be a bigger job. We'd have to put it out to bid and hire a company, and that could take 2 to 3 years because with public money, all these jobs have to go out to bid. That's a really important point to make because I feel like sometimes the community doesn't realize we're working on projects, and we are. They just take time to be completed. But please, if you do have any complaints about a curb ramp, broken, blocked, or an intersection in need of one, visit boston.gov and look for the curb ramp request form.
Okay, and just a reminder, you can continue to sign up. I know that we have another person who signed up, Mel Arredondo. Would you like to come to the mic?
If anyone wants us to bring the mic to them, please just raise your hand and we can do that. If you'd like to sit, Mel.
It's actually good to get up every once in a while. My name is Melida Arredondo, and I am a post-menopausal person with osteogenesis imperfecta, the brittle bone disease. And the reason I bring up that it's post-menopausal is that the majority of my life, a lot of people did not know that I was fracturing, et cetera. I was able to move around, et cetera. Occasionally I would use a wheelchair or a cane. And as a child, I broke more than 50 times. I just stopped counting at 50, okay? But now that I'm older, postmenopausal, I have been having a dickens of a time trying to find job within the city. And I was wondering if I have a background, I have a master's in public health, I have 30 years experience, I am bilingual since I am Latina, and it's just been very difficult. And I question, because I've applied to city quite a few times, I question, they have a place when you're applying online, do you have disabilities? And I answer it. It's supposed to be confidential, but I question if that's not why I'm getting callbacks, or if I do have 3 online interviews, why I'm not moving forward. And so that's one part of it. And the other part of it is that I would like people who have disabilities to be in the same category as, let's say, veterans, in terms of it's a plus for an organization within the city of Boston to hire them.
Okay, thank you. So the question was about employment with the City of Boston for people who have disabilities. And I will say that we've done a lot of work on that actually in my office. We work very closely with the Mass Rehab Commission. I don't know if you're familiar with them. That's the state vocational rehab commission that assists people with disabilities in going back to work or getting work if they haven't been employed before. And we also work very closely with our Human Resources Department. So one thing we did during COVID was we held webinars to help people with disabilities figure out the maze of trying to get a job with the city. Because the city has different websites to apply for different agencies within the city. Boston Public Health Commission has its own website, its own human resources, its own employment form. The City of Boston in general, like City Hall jobs, they have their own website and form. Boston Water and Sewer is also a city job. They have their own form. BPDA, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, has their own form. So it's very complicated to try to find a job in City Hall to even apply. So we did do those webinars. We also, we're trying to create a pipeline of getting people with disabilities into the system of being able to get a first round interview if they meet the minimum qualifications for a job. So we've been doing this for a long time. We have summer internships for adults with disabilities who are job ready. So I can follow up with you after the forum if you want to talk more about that. But other than that, in the big picture, we are working on it, like you said, to maybe equate it with like veteran status or something else, because I know the state does that sometimes, the federal government does that in certain cases. So I think the City of Boston is aiming to become a model employer for people with disabilities, and we have a lot more work to do. But I think this is good timing because we know everybody is looking for workers, and this may be one untapped pool that we can reach into. So can you please see me after the forum? But just so the public knows, we do a lot of work, again, systemically to try to improve opportunities in employment for people with disabilities within the City of Boston. So thank you.
We have another question from the Zoom room. How has Boston made voting more accessible to the disability community?
Accessible voting, this is one of my favorite questions because we're actually in the forefront in the country when it comes to accessible voting. So as you may know during COVID, there was the governor signed in order to allow electronic voting, virtual voting. We've always had voting if you were out of the country, you could request an absentee ballot. But what we did was when the city implemented online voting, it wasn't accessible to people who were blind and people who had dexterity limitations that they couldn't do it themselves. So what the city did was we I may be getting some of these steps wrong, but anyway, we implemented an accessible vote by mail program that allows people with disabilities, if they have a dexterity visual disability, they can vote electronically. And that has been extended through 2025. So you can get more information on boston.gov/elections. And we also work very closely with the elections department to ensure that all the in-person voting sites are accessible. And we sit on the election advisory committee to ensure that they think about disabilities and accessibility in all of their work. Our good friend Chiron worked at the elections department for years, and we collaborated with him. I know the elections department does training for all their poll workers. They have what they call accessibility ambassadors at every site to ensure that people with disabilities are welcomed, included, and that they can know that they can use the AutoMark machine, which is a machine that assists people with disabilities to vote. So we do a lot of work with elections, and we're really proud of the electronic vote by mail that's accessible to people with disabilities. And you can find out more on the website at boston.gov/election.
Great. Okay, we're going to go back to one of the pre-submitted questions now. But before we do, just reminding everybody in the audience, if you want to ask a question, please come on up and sign up. We received a question about the new center running bus lane that was recently installed on Columbus Ave and have plans for Blue Hill Ave. What are some thoughts from the Disability Commission on that?
Okay. The question is about center running bus lanes. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a new configuration that the city's implementing where the bus stop is actually in the middle of the traffic lanes. And before I answer this question, I just want to throw it out there to any city staff. For anything that I mention, if you have more input, please raise your hand and we'll pass you a mic, because I'm not a technical expert in any of these areas, so I'll do my best. Charlotte, is this something that you'd want to comment on? Oh, that'd be great, because Charlotte's one of our biggest allies in BTD. She always has a lens of accessibility in her work.
Thank you. So they're actually really good for accessibility because, for a couple reasons. One is that the bus stop is always accessible by the bus right now.
Can you hold that up a little bit closer?
Yep. Can you?
That's better, yep.
The bus stop is always, sorry. Let me try. Okay. Okay. The bus stop is always available for the bus to pull fully up to the curb, which is not the case when the bus stops are on the side of the road. So when the bus lanes are in the middle, they're dedicated bus lanes, so only the buses can use them, and they're painted red. And so the bus pulls right up to the curb, and also the curb is higher than normal, so that someone who's in a wheelchair can wheel directly into the bus. You don't need to wait for a ramp. And the way that works is that you cross the street to get to the center running bus stop, and then you travel down the bus stop, and it gradually rises until it's at the appropriate level for the bus. Also, getting to the bus stop, you cross half the road, and you're in the middle. Then when you get off the bus stop, you cross. And when you're only crossing half the road at a time, it's safer than crossing the whole road. So, on average, I mean, either way, you're going to have to cross the street if you're taking the bus, both directions. But this way, you're only crossing one direction at a time. So it should make it safer. And but people need to get used to it, and I understand it is a change. And so some people are skeptical. And so I would invite people to check out the Columbus Ave bus lanes and see it for yourself.
And where is the one that's currently installed? On what blocks?
So it's between Walnut and, is it Center Street over by Jackson? Yeah.
Okay. And do we have plans to install more of these center bus stops?
We do. It's Blue Hill Avenue, as the questioner mentioned, and other locations.
Okay. Great. So again, this will be part of our outreach campaign on shared spaces in the city. In addition to bike lanes and outdoor dining, we know that center running bus lanes are a new configuration, like Charlotte said, people need to get used to them. They won't recognize them. They might be a little nervous about the setup. So we will definitely be doing outreach on that and working closely with BTD as more of these get installed. So I just want to take a break for one moment and ask if anybody has a question in the audience, feel free to just raise your hand, even if you didn't write it down. We do have time to take questions. And also if any city staff, as I mentioned, has anything that they want to add to any of the questions they heard or anything else, just raise a hand and let us know. And I believe I am hearing that Mayor Wu may have arrived. So we'll take a moment and just wait for the mayor. And here she is. Please welcome Mayor Wu, everybody. Mayor, there's a microphone right in front.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'll stand over here.
Mayor Wu.
It's nice to see you all. Thank you so much for your leadership in our city and for being part of a community that we are looking to empower and make sure is incorporated and leading the way on all the policy decisions. I'm very honored to serve alongside the commissioner and an incredible team, many of whom, City of Boston folks, raise your hands. So we have lots of ringers in the room to provide resources and make sure that in the work that we do every day, department by department, that we're connected to the issues and the dreams and the solutions from our disability community out in our neighborhoods.
Oh, excuse me, Mayor. It says that you're off camera for the Zoom, so we want to make sure we get you on camera. Okay. Maybe if you stand in the middle of the room.
Okay. I think on this side it looks like I will still be on.
Great, thank you.
Great. And thank you so much, Commissioner, and everyone for making sure that we could have a Zoom and virtual option. I know that responsiveness was very, very needed and happened very quickly, so really appreciate all of your efforts. There are some incredible leaders on our advisory board and who have been working alongside the city for a very, very long time. I wanted to highlight a few issues that I have had the chance to think about alongside community members and to start to see the potential for city action. One is that in our early iteration back in 2016 of designing the city's communications access ordinance, Boston became the first city in the country to think about language access as not only the availability of interpreters across different languages, but also assistive technology and ensuring that communications access and that the availability of technology in different spaces would be part of that very same office and that very same conversation. We've also, in a city that celebrates its history, needed to make sure that accessibility can be right alongside that history. And sometimes that is quite a challenge. We still see it on our cobblestone streets and in our historic neighborhoods. City Hall and our City Council chamber underwent a deep renovation for the first time in 2017 to become a universally accessible space, but prior to that time, it had not been. And so as we look to extend the learnings and the partnerships that we've seen work on so many issues across our city, I'm incredibly grateful to all of our board members who spend so much volunteer time alerting us of issues and presenting the solutions that we should be investing in. I want to also make sure to celebrate that this has been an incredibly difficult time during the pandemic, and that members of the disability community have faced additional and unique challenges, and in the provision of PPE, in the outreach to community members, Commissioner McCosh and her team alongside our city staff have been incredible, and I want to thank everyone for coming together, pitching in, and really making sure that everyone would be part of our recovery and our city in this time of need. We have an opportunity now Okay, I'm going to drop all these prepared remarks and just speak for. Okay, so there is one thing that I did want to mention, but before I make a pitch to our event coming up in a couple months, we have an opportunity now, with eyes on cities and eyes on Boston, to really show what it means to be a city for everyone. For the first time in a generation, we have resources available from the federal government for our recovery. We have energy and alignment across city, state, and federal government to do more in this moment. And we often see that the traditional ways that government processes have worked in the past often have been quite marginalizing, often have not included all of our community members. And so as we strive in this administration to do big things by getting the small things right, to get City Hall out of City Hall into our neighborhoods, block by block, and to embrace the possibility of Boston and of what we can do through city government together, I am so grateful for your leadership in ensuring that our disability community members are in the many intersectional identities that we all wear, are leading the charge and part of the recovery that we are laying a foundation for in this moment. And so with spaces like this, to come together, to analyze, to have accountability for the work that has happened, to plan and dream for the work ahead, I want to make sure that we keep that going. We are having our annual ADA Day celebration on July 19th, and this will be on the, by then, partially but not fully renovated City Hall Plaza. So that we're going to do a special opening of the plaza for that day. And then unfortunately we'll need to close it up until it is done fully in August. But we wanted to make sure that this important milestone and day is celebrated in and on the People's Plaza, near the People's Building. And it is such an honor to be here with you and to represent you all. Thank you so much for your service and for your leadership.
Thank you so much, Mayor Wu. And I do want to give a shout out to the advisory board because they gave a lot of input on City Hall Plaza and really helped to ensure that it was universally accessible. I know that the community is so thrilled to hear from you, and I wonder if anybody has any questions or comments that they want to raise now while the mayor is here. Can I see a hand in the middle? You want to, Kylie? Can you bring the mic over?
Bill Henning in the center of the room.
Hi. Hello. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for coming, Mayor. Great to see the mayor at this forum, which is really held. Obviously, we don't have as many people here as we usually would, but we have the Zoom, which is terrific. And we really appreciate the effort to support remote access and at Boston Center for Independent Living. We strongly urge that you continue that City Council has there's a proposal before the council to keep remote access. We hope to the highest degree possible we can have remote access to meetings. It is equal access. It is really carrying out the spirit of the ADA. So today is great. More of it will be fantastic. You just mentioned the commission's great work distributing PPE and connecting with the Health Commission. I just want to give a shout out to them. Right at the beginning of the pandemic, we were working daily with Kristen's office and Public Health Commission, and we were getting PPE out to consumers, out to personal care attendants, and a lot of it goes right to Kristen and Public Health Commission. I know you were still on City Council then, but it was a fantastic effort that distributed it. When no one was getting masks, we were getting them to people with disabilities in Boston, so kudos there. And lastly, I think if we have one concern at BCIL, and we appreciate what you're doing on housing, the housing crisis severely impacts people with disabilities. We need accessible housing. We need affordable housing. I know you know that. We need units. And when we're done with that, more units. I know you know that. But this is perhaps one of the biggest disability rights issues in the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else have a question right next to Bill? on the right, Kylie?
There was a woman in the back as well. Right
Okay,
there you go.
yep.
Hello, I'm Felix Jordan. I'm an organizer also at BCIL.
Can you hold the mic a little closer?
Is this good?
Yeah, but could you
Okay.
repeat what you said? We didn't hear it.
Yeah, I'm Felix Jordan, working an organizer at BCIL with Bill. Nice to meet you in person. So I do kind of have a spiel beginning of my question. So as we all know, like it's pretty obvious that the world's getting hotter, more volatile, and it's only going to get worse because of the climate crisis that has largely been ignored. Hello, there we go. And that means longer and hotter summers, flooding, intense and deadly storms, increased power outages. There's an estimate, I think, put out by the city that says that by 2070, there will be like 4 months of days over the like 80 degrees. And as someone who has had family that has experienced extreme weather, I've had family have to flee both Katrina and Ida. I'm thinking about what it means to sort of like, you know, as we can, like the pandemic has shown us that like people of color, poor people, and people with disabilities frequently get left behind in terms of disaster. And the city of Boston has already begun like really important work in terms of like resiliency work and mitigating what could be pretty terrible. So I'm really wondering, like, I don't know, when we think about people with disabilities, we often think of like specific groups, but like the disability community is a very vast community that has a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different needs. And I really want to make sure we don't lose sight of the fact that like people with disabilities need to be represented at all steps and not just one or two. I'd like to thank Commissioner McCosh for being so responsive to our concerns at BCIL, and we're looking very forward to working with you more. So with all of that being said, I was wondering, I know your office has done work on emergency preparedness in the past, and if you could speak to what you think has been really successful and what you think needs to be worked on in the context of people with disabilities in the Boston area.
Great, thank you so much, Felix. It is nice to meet you in person. I've seen you on Zoom multiple times, but again, finally hoping to get back out in community. I will say my colleague Chiron, who spoke earlier, he used to be at elections, and now he is with the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management. Could you talk a little bit, Chiron, for a minute about some of the work that we do? I know you mentioned there's Alert Boston. Could you tell people how to sign up for that?
Yes,
just
no
as a
problem.
first response, and then I'll get to the rest of your question.
So thank you again, and thank you for your question. So first, I'll start with the Alert Boston piece, just because that's a little bit easier to talk through. If you'd like to sign up for Alert Boston, you can visit our webpage at boston.gov/emergency. We have a widget where you can add your phone number, you can add your email address, and we can send out alerts via phone call, text, or email. And so it's really accessible. We do provide it in all languages. Thanks to LCA and their team for helping us push that forward. And so that's the way that you can be informed about the emergency, what resources are available, and how to mitigate, right? Now, as far as climate change and everything like that, that's largely led by the Environment Department. They do have Climate Ready Boston. I know on April 22nd, we did a heat resilience announcement where we're doing some work around how we can, you know, basically mitigate that impact of heat. I know that there's definitely conversations around flooding, especially when you talk about like East Boston, or when you think about Morrissey Boulevard sometimes, how that can get really flooded to the point where, you know, cars can't really travel and things like that. And so the city is definitely taking steps to work with community groups, other government partners to ensure that when those things happen, we have a plan in place to communicate, mitigate, and help us get back to normalcy. And I know there's some planning being done long-term to try to address some of these issues as well. So I'm sorry, I know I can't give you, you know, maybe a more detailed response, but I would say that's a good overarching one.
Yeah, I can add a little to that. I just really wanted to get out a plug for Alert Boston because we've done so much work on that, and we really want to get the message out to the community. You can also get Alert Boston in text message if you have a hearing disability or if you're deaf. So please, I encourage everybody to sign up for that. On the bigger scale, as far as planning for climate change and resiliency, as Chiron said, we work closely with the Environment Department and Chief White-Hammond, who really has the big picture in mind when we work with Parks Department when they're planning renovations to raise the footprint of parks and really try to build in infrastructure that will absorb water and keep us safe from those like natural large storms. But on another scale too, COVID has shown us really how far we need to go. We've done a ton of planning work and we do it constantly, but there are still gaps when it comes to people with disabilities, as you said, especially people with functional needs. So working with the Boston Public Health Commission for years, we've looked at emergency shelters. All the BCYF centers that are used as emergency shelters have been assessed for ADA compliance. We've talked about best practices as far as training people who run the shelters, if they were activated. There's a guidebook, like people with disabilities get to bring in service animals, they're not pets, things like that. People are concerned about not bringing in medication. So we've done extensive training with the Public Health Commission to talk about the needs of people with disabilities when it comes to emergency shelter. Other things that we need to look at are resources when people have to shelter in place, as we saw during COVID. The city did a Herculean effort to get people meals, to keep the Boston Public School students in school who needed to be in school, kids in special ed who really couldn't stay home all day. So we are working with multiple departments to work on this. It's a huge issue, we know that. The mayor is very committed to reducing our carbon footprint and pushing electric vehicles. I believe the city's Boston Public Schools bus fleet, it was just given some money to go electric. So we've been working on it for a long time and we're finally starting to see some results. But we're really happy that you're involved on a community level. And I know we just connected you with Chief White-Hammond and a few other people in the city. So I'm looking forward to joining those meetings with you.
Commissioner, do you mind if I add a couple more points?
Sure.
It may be for
The cart will need the mic.
access, though.
Yeah, let's grab the
cart
mic.
needs the mic.
So I know the BPDA, they also have a waterfront coordinator, Joe Cristo. He really works diligently, especially with the waterfront, to ensure that we're thinking about mitigation efforts. And one plan that we just completed in our office is the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. So I definitely encourage you to check that out at boston.gov/emergency, where you can see some of the work and the planning that has been done around that, as far as like a 5-year plan for how we can start to really, dig into those issues. So I would definitely encourage you to visit those in addition to the environment webpage as well. So I just wanted to cue those up.
All right, I think there was someone in the back who had a question.
Thank you. My name's David Rold. I'm a longtime disability rights activist, and I want to make a couple comments about the impact of the COVID measures on people with disabilities. Like masks have physical and psychological downsides to everybody, and they're particularly tough on people with disabilities who may have breathing issues or psychological problems or might not be able to wear a mask. And there are supposed to be like exemptions for people who don't wear a mask for health reasons, and the exemptions often aren't honored. I can't wear a mask, and I wasn't allowed into City Hall when there was a mask mandate there, despite saying I needed the exemption. And then when there's a lockdown, when there are lockdown measures in hospitals and medical facilities, that impacts people with disabilities, because we need our family members and friends to come in with us and help us make medical decisions or help us advocate with healthcare professionals. And when we can only go in alone, that's difficult for us. And vaccine injuries, like people with disabilities are like more affected by vaccine injuries. And in the mainstream discourse, like they say that people with disabilities are more affected by so-called COVID and need vaccines, but really people are still getting sick regardless of getting the vaccine, and people with disabilities are more affected by the negative consequences of vaccines. So I hope there won't be any more COVID measures, and but whether there shouldn't be measures based on a real or fake pandemic that are going to oppress people with disabilities and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Colleen, did you say there was someone who wants to ask a question?
You need to use the mic so that we have Cart and the people on Zoom can listen. I can, okay.
I want to say also on the measure of masks is that I have cortical vision impairment, which is a vision impairment that has to do with the brain, not the eyes. And for me, I just lost all of my lower field during the pandemic because of the masks. And it has been hard. I just really want to understand how long does, schools in Massachusetts, like colleges, will you guys help figure out, how long we need to be wearing masks? Are there any exemptions for college students that have disabilities? Also, what I wanted to say also was how we need to work on, before we get the Green Line extended to Somerville, we need to work on making sure that every Green Line does not have either stairs or the ones that have stairs and then no stairs. We need to figure out how to get that. So, and I also know you, Mayor Wu, from the Stop Asian Hate movements last year. But we need to figure out the Green Line before it gets extended further than Boston. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Mayor, was there anything you wanted to say? I don't want to cut you off.
I'll just say thank you so much for your advocacy.
I came all the way out from Somerville.
Thank you.
The Green Line since Project.
Thank you and welcome. And am I on camera? Okay, I'll move over a little bit. I know exactly what you're talking about with the stairs on the Green Line, that we have the oldest subway tunnels anywhere in America in our system, but it's about time that they were brought up to date a little bit. When I was commuting into City Hall with both of my kids in a big stroller, many times we would be trapped in certain stations, but for the kindness of strangers who'd be willing to help lift the stroller out. And so for residents with mobility devices, whether it's scooters or wheelchairs or another assistive mobility device, it's unacceptable that we are where we are today when it comes to our public transit system. And then on the issue of masks, I know this has been a confusing layering of different policies from different places. So just to be clear on what the current landscape looks like, right now, neither the state nor the city has a broad mask mandate. The City of Boston's Public Health Commission has recommended masks indoors, and particularly in indoor spaces with many people, because we have seen case counts start to go up, and the community positivity numbers are going up as well. The only place in Boston where the city has required masks and continues to require masks is in our Boston public schools. The vaccination rate within our Boston public school system remains quite low, unfortunately, and we continue to work at it, but it hovers at under 40%. And districts across the state are now looking to considering putting masks requirements back on in certain public school settings as well. And so we're not quite there in terms of lifting that from our K through 12 schools. But at the university level, it is really the policies of each institution. And so I know it feels like we're now 2.5 years into the situation, and it's incredibly frustrating. We've learned so much. There's better treatment for those who do end up having to seek hospital care for COVID, but it's still very much in our community right now. I think many of us know someone who knows someone who's tested positive recently, and so I know it requires a lot, and we just want to lead from a place of public health and safety most of all.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for that question. So we have time for one more question, and I believe we're going to turn to Zoom. Colleen?
I'd like to speak again now that the mayor's here. Good afternoon, Mayor Walsh. My name is Sister Kadrian. I'm a community outreach worker, independent community outreach worker, and I'm also a workplace mobbing survivor. I worked at Northeastern University for 10.5 years, and I was forced out of my job for speaking up about a $20,000 salary disparity. I almost committed suicide. My case is at the First Circuit Court of Appeals. I was denied an attorney at the district level. I was also denied an attorney at the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and I had to walk away from my case. My case is against 36 defendants, but there are more. And I'm very concerned about the fact that if we don't deal with this issue, someone is going to show up in the workplace here in Boston or somewhere else and take matters into their own hand, as we saw at Sandy Hook's and other places. There's a case in Seattle where a young man, 40 years old, was provoked to commit suicide. He cut his wrist and cut his neck. And I'm very concerned for the workforce in general, as well as the disability community. I became disabled as a result of this workplace mobbing, and we have to do something about it. I've contacted over 25 attorneys. Most of the attorneys were rude. Many of them didn't return my call, and the ones who I spoke to cited a conflict of interest with Northeastern University. Northeastern is too powerful, and we cannot turn a blind eye to what Northeastern is doing to our community. So something has to take place. In 10 days, I will be meeting for the 4th year the death of my husband, and also the fact that our marriage ended because of the trauma of workplace bullying. My husband died from an opioid overdose and alcohol. So now I'm a single parent. I'm a widow. There are many issues in my case, and we have to do something about it. We can't turn a blind eye anymore. I've been to the clergy. I contacted President Obama 4 times. I contacted President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Marty Walsh when he was the president, also Marty Walsh now that he's the Secretary of Labor, Merrick Garland. I've been to every level of the government. Something has to be done.
Thank you so much, sister. And we said we'll follow up with you after the forum if you can stay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We do have one final question, and it's in the room. Gerard, is it? Okay. We'll get you a mic. Hold on one second.
We got it.
Kristen, it's great to see you again.
You too.
At this event, you've always had great successes in doing what we've done in Boston over the years because of this event. Alone, great seeing a lot of familiar faces there too, and actually given the honor of seeing Mayor Wu in person. In any event, we heard a lot about the curb cuts that were going to be looked at, and so I'm wondering, in light of that, along with the 2 problematic ones that have been around for a long time now, just a few blocks from here, on the same side on Tremont Street, on the corner of West Street in Tremont. So that one there, as you know, a curb was just ripped out at some point one year, probably about 10 or 12 years ago. It's just concrete put there, so it's not ADA compliant. And then right on that same street where he has a brand new, within a few years, maybe 4 years, the crosswalk, but there's not a curb cut that goes with the crosswalk, so you have to go out in the line of traffic to get to the crosswalk to cross over into the Boston Common. That's one. And then there's one where they did the north side of the Boylston Street a few years ago with the street and installed new lighting. Just as you're turning right going down Boylston to get onto Charles Street, there's the curb cut there that is a disaster. Not even people who are able-bodied will walk through that. Okay. So I don't know how that ended there when the work was being done right up just a few feet from there. So those are the 2 spots. And then with Mike Mewey's consent decree last October to the tune of $25 million, how does that play into all of these curb cuts we keep hearing about? And also the Commonwealth Ave Mall, where you have a lot of asphalt that's sort of broken up, and then there's lines where you have to stop every 20 feet.
Yeah.
You're pushing a stroller, for example, or you have a walker, or myself in a power chair. You have some areas that are seamless and that are relatively new, but then they stop in some areas.
Okay.
So in light of all of that, how does that $25 million quote unquote consent decree that Mike Mew agreed to with the city of Boston last year factor into all that?
Yep. So the question was about curb ramps in different parts of the city, particularly downtown and Commonwealth Ave. And Gerard also referenced the consent decree that I mentioned earlier. So as part of the consent decree, Boston Public Works is going to be installing 1,600 accessible curb ramps a year, in addition to the work that they always do. The city has a large budget for public works, but as I mentioned earlier, Gerard, sometimes these projects just take a long time to plan out. They have to be engineered, they have to be put out to bid, they have to go on the schedule. So it may seem like we're not doing the work, but in fact, it's in the planning stage and it will be done as soon as possible. I know you had spoken to me for a long time about the Boston Public Garden. There was an inaccessible entry there, and it took a few years, but we got it fixed, and it's beautiful and compliant. But I will say that that money is going directly to curb ramps. We're assessing the city now. There is a whole program looking at the downtown streets, Winter Street, Temple Place, and West Street. So those will be done in the next few years. But again, unfortunately, these projects take time. But I want you to know that we're on it. It's an interdepartmental effort. We're working with BPDA. In addition to Public Works, we're working with private contractors. Utilities do a lot of work downtown, and private contractors working on buildings do sidewalk work. So it's a multi-tiered effort. And we actually have a meeting next week to talk to the BPDA about it so they can push their developers to be sure that they look at curb ramps. But we will be reporting publicly about it too, so stay tuned for that. And again, it's a serious issue, and we're taking it seriously. We always have, but now we're going to be held to the letter of the law, and we will certainly meet those requirements and strive to do more. So thank you for raising that. Unfortunately, on that note, it is 3:30 on the dot, and we do have to wrap up because of CART and ASL, and we know the mayor has a very busy schedule, but certainly want to thank the mayor for attending, and we're thrilled to be under her leadership. And looking forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you all for your community advocacy, and thank you to all the city staff who attended today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.